My journey would start at one of my low points, honestly. 4 years ago, when I was at this low point, I had actually just closed the biggest real estate transaction of my life. And yet I was confused. I was lost. I was empty inside. I was like, what is the purpose of all of this? So it was a two-step, well, actually it was three separate parcels that were all part of the same family land parcels that I was selling at Morrison Ranch, and total was 200 million bucks. So over a 1 year period of time, I closed $200 million worth of land transactions in the hottest market in the United States. And it was one of those things where, I mean, I generated millions of dollars worth of commission revenue that I felt cool, great, that was amazing. And yet I was empty inside and I was seeking for like real purpose. And it was right at this time that this desire to evolve the transactional nature of what I was in and living in into one of conscious connections began to take root. And it was ironic because again, there was a plethora of abundance in the form of money, but yet my soul was empty. My soul was eroded. And honestly, I was in an extremely dark place. And it was soon after that I received a direct download from God, the Almighty Creator, that was in essence telling me, okay, you're done with transactional real estate. And your future will entail building healing centers and building new communities, new cities, new ways of being, living, and operating that are not built upon transactional relationships. And I had no idea what that meant. All I knew is that was what I was going to be doing. And an immense amount of fear came over me. And not only fear, it was an inability for me to do what I used to be able to do in my sleep. Pick up the phone, make phone calls, send emails, send text messages. I could not operate in this brokerage capacity that I was able to do for my entire career. I had a wife, I had 6 kids. This was my main and primary source of revenues. And here I was facing the unknown of like, what does this actually mean? If I'm done with transactional real estate, well, what does this actually mean? And it was in that place that I stopped putting my desires of what I wanted to be doing, and even probably more challenging is what other people wanted me to be doing. For example, my wife, my family, my friends, I had this overwhelming pressure around me of like, what are you doing, bro? Why are you not doing what you always used to do? And I didn't know how to respond to them. I didn't know how to answer that question because ultimately I had this feeling inside that I needed to be doing something different. I needed to be building something different. And I had no idea what that looked like, but I had to begin to trust the process. I had to begin to let go and let a much higher source of intelligence prevail in my life. And it was then that I received an Instagram notification. I'm not a big Instagrammer, but for whatever reason, there was an Instagram ad that came across my Instagram, and I clicked on it, which I'd never click on Instagram ads. And not only did I click on the Instagram ad, I clicked on to sign up to go to this experience put on by this group, a community called Altar Call, where they were rising up a community of spiritual entrepreneurs. And for whatever reason, this message that came across my feed like hit me to the soul level, and I knew I had to go. And interestingly, the timing of when this happened was right before I had actually closed on the second portion of those transactions that I was referring to. It had been about a year gap in between those periods of time. And so I was in an interesting situation where, yes, I had revenues that had been generated, but yet something was telling me that those revenues that were generated are not going to go anywhere else. But for the first time ever, I chose to invest in myself. And this Altar Call ad that came across my plate was where God was telling me, you got to go. You got to go invest. You got to go invest in yourself. For the first time ever, I chose to invest in my well-being, in my health, because my health is my wealth. And it was the beginnings of me understanding this new way of looking at the world, not through the lens of dollars and cents, but through the lens of going inward and finding this inner peace and finding this inner purpose that gave me a clarity on how I was going to move forward. This was a very challenging situation that I found myself in. At this point in time, again, I'm married, 6 kids. My wife, who is a full-time mom to 6 children and supports me as her husband. When I look at her in the eyes and tell her I'm done with traditional real estate brokerage as my day-to-day, I'm not doing that anymore. I can't do that anymore. And when she asks me, okay, well, what's the plan? And I tell her, I don't know. All I know is that I need to go to this experience called altar call. So after I get home from this experience, I then have to answer to my business partner at the time. And I come back from this experience of altar call with these downloads. I finally was able to organize myself, my thoughts, after having practiced and prepared myself to experience what I experienced there. And what I practiced leading up to that experience was for the first time ever, I came across a YouTube video by Dr. Joe Dispenza that taught me how to ascend my energy out of my survival centers of my body and unite my heart and my mind. Dr. Joe Dispenza, for those who don't know him, he's a world-renowned neuroscientist, formerly was a chiropractor, and is now a neuroscientist. And he began to teach me how to use my breath to begin to open up parts of my body that, historically speaking, were dormant. I'd never known how to physiologically open my heart with a chemical that's a relaxation chemical that opens my heart called EDRF. I had no idea how to engage BDNF, which is a brain-derived neurotropic factor in my brain. He breaks down all these things for me. So in this state where I'm like confused, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm trying to answer to my wife. I'm trying to answer to my business partner. I'm trying to answer to all these people in my life that have been dependent upon me running and operating a brokerage. And yet I'm being told, go down these roads, learn about yourself, learn about your body, learn about how to breathe, learn about how to metanoeo, change even the very way you breathe. I began to ask these questions as to why. And every time I would ask the question why, I would be given another little nugget of truth as to why. And for about a 6-month period of time, leading up to receiving this message that I received from Altar Call, all I did when I was in these immense dark states is I would go up into this meditation room and I would change the way I breathe and I would ascend my energy. And I know this is going to be convoluted because it's not flowing freely on a timeline, because when I said God told me that I'm going to be building healing centers and new cities, that happened when I sold the dairy 4 years ago to my partner Brad Gorman. The revenues that I generated off of that sale immediately went into building the first phase of the Zen Warrior Lab, which is called the Zen Den. So I got a chunk of revenues, spent that revenue, the bulk of those revenues on building out the first ever healing center, because God told me I'm going to be building healing centers. So I did it, and I built it right here in my office. So in those phases where I couldn't pick up the phone, where I couldn't send a text, where I couldn't do the things that I used to be able to do. Instead, I would go up into the meditation room that I had just built, and I would sit and I would breathe and I would learn how to open my heart, and I learned how to connect my mind, and I would learn how to see using my spiritual eye, my pineal gland, these visions of what was truly in my heart. For the first time ever, I was able to open my heart and leave it open, and therefore be able to receive what it was that I was supposed to be doing. And it came bit by bit, line upon line it came. It didn't come in one full swoop. It would come in little bits and pieces, in different people that showed up into my life, in different messages that came across my Instagram feed or my YouTube notifications, whatever it was. But every time that I would seek, every time that I would have a question, something would be brought to me that I would then learn upon whatever question that I had. And wow, it was a challenging experience. It was like, I can't even put words to how heavy my days were back then. Very heavy, very hard for me, for my family, for my wife, for my kids. I had to learn how to let go of all of these feelings that were stuck inside of me, that were telling me that I got to go and do all these things. I got to be the guy that goes and closes all these deals, because if it's not me, if I'm not the one out there grinding and hustling and doing everything else, then I'm not going to get money, right? That's the way our world works. That's the transactional nature of how we do things. And the moment that I learned how to let go of that, and that came with immense destruction of the life that I had created. The real estate brokerage firm that I had created, Perk Prop Real Estate, which was at ground zero to this, not only the single family residential movement, but had sold billions of dollars worth of real estate. And all of it began to crumble. All of it began to go away. And I had to witness this. I had to watch this crumbling effect just leave me. And through that whole process, I had to trust it. I had to trust, and I had to know, I had to feel, I had to see it, I had to feel it, I had to see it, I had to feel it over and over and over again, and believe that all of this was happening for my own good. And I can tell you that it was extremely challenging, that it was extremely painful, that it was extremely confusing, but yet the words of Isaiah continually came to my mind. My thoughts are not your thoughts, and your ways are most definitely not my ways, saith the Lord. And as I would continue to trust in those words, miracles continued to show up in my life that are so much greater than my abilities to be able to organize. And it was through that process that Prana Ventures, that Silverado Holdings, that this new Horizon platform being launched out of Perk Prop Real Estate, that the Zen Warrior Lab program, which is where I've lived my own personal life the last 4 years, I've lived in the Zen Warrior Lab, applying these principles found within the C2 way, consciously connected way of living, and ultimately Arizona AI, authentic intelligence, an education module empowering the next generation to learn these principles, to teach our children how to let go and let God prevail in their lives. All of this has been organized, not by my own actions, by simply allowing the creator of the universe to prevail in my life. So other people that are watching this, that are hearing these words, that are feeling it in your soul, that you too have a greater calling, that maybe AI, maybe artificial intelligence is taking your job right now. And you're hearing this and you're saying, wow, okay, well, if this guy has been able to create a multi-billion-dollar real estate empire over the last 4 years by doing less. I've done so much less than I ever did in my real estate career over these last 4 years, but yet have accomplished an infinite amount of capabilities that were way outside of my own. So if you're listening to this and you're hearing these words and you're wondering, okay, how do I go about this? It's one simple word, metanoeo. I know. Sounds crazy, right? It's divine. Change. Learn how to change, even the very way you breathe. Because as you change the way you breathe, the energy in your body will reset, will reorganize. You will let go. Your heart will open. Your mind will connect. You will be able to be your authentic self and therefore attract into your life everything that you need. I know it's scary. I know it's hard. I know it sounds like, what? How is this actually possible? I promise you, as you trust, as you walked in faith, as you act in a way, believing, knowing, and trusting that your higher power, that higher power will step in and will organize things for you. I promise you. I know it. I felt it. I've experienced it.